Okay, hey everybody, this is Charlie Dobbins. This is the next version in the multifamily offer writing workshop. This one is going to be a little bit different because I had a conversation with one of the members of the Masterclass Elite program this past week, where he asked a couple of questions regarding a particular type of property, and I went through and explained the whole scenario, and I realized, geez, you know, that's something that I probably should teach on one of my next calls, and I figure it really is best taught during the offer writing workshop, because if you don't understand what this type of property means and entails, you'll never get to the offer writing stage with that particular type of property. What type of property am I talking about? I'm talking about what are called LIHTC properties, low income housing tax credit properties. As you can see right down here in the keyword on LoopNet, I have typed in LIHTC. Most of the large brokerage houses have a low-income housing tax credit division. It is a huge opportunity for those people that know what they're doing and know how to get into it. And the thing is, you need to be able to evaluate the broker's information so that you can make an offer the smart way. So we will not be going through the cash flow analyzer on any particular property. This discussion will be essentially all the things that you need to understand before you get to that cash flow analyzer stage. And typically, what it will entail is you calling the broker and having a very serious conversation as to what's going on that particular property, because some LIHTC properties are fantastic and others are disastrous, and you've got to know exactly how to tell. Obviously you know how to tell the difference, but know why that is the case. So let me show you what you do. You know, if you wanted to, you can just type in the LIHTC on the search bar for LoopNet and just hit search. Let me just make sure that you're all seeing my screen. Just confirm that is everybody seeing that? Let me just close this. I never pay any money for LoopNet. All right, so yeah, great. Okay, so you can see my screen. Great, excellent. So here we've got a whole bunch of different properties. There are only 9 or 21 listings for low-income housing tax credit properties. Now, I'm going to pull out a couple of them so you can see exactly how they operate. The first one I'm going to take a look at. First off, let me kind of give you an overview of what low-income housing tax credits mean. And I'm going to do so by first grabbing a let me just do a search. Actually, I think I already have that one open right up here. Now let me grab it again. What you'll find is, actually, let me show you how I find these guys, just so you know exactly what I'm doing. So I take a look at these properties. I try to find one in a particular area that I like, and Youngstown, Ohio. So I'll click on the Seneca Oaks Apartments. $1.5 million for 154 units, so about 10 grand per unit. Holy cow, what a steal. Yeah, but you know what that means? That means there's something wrong with this property. Let me kind of give you an overview. Here's the executive summary. We'll pull this thing up right now. I'm going to download the executive summary. Actually, I might already have that on my system. Yeah, so the way it works with low-income housing tax credits is when a builder goes out there and gets financing from the government, it can be put into the program, the low-income housing tax credit program, and the federal government gives them tax credits that they can use, or they can sell them to other investors. Anyone looking for a tax credit can buy these tax credits from these developers. And so what happens is the developer sits down with the government and says, okay, I built the property, I'm ready to turn it over into the program, into one of the housing authorities here within your state. I'm ready to take my tax credits. Please, hand them over to me. And the government says, well, we want something back for those tax credits. And what we want back for those tax credits is the ability that a certain number of your units, or all of your units, will be saved for low-income housing people. And for doing that, we're going to say, here are the tax credits that you're entitled to. But you've got to give us those low-income units for 15 years. And the guy says, well, okay, yeah, that's fine. I don't really care. I'm going to sell the property. I'm not looking to manage this property. I'm not looking to manage a low-income housing tax property. I'll take your tax credits. I'll sell the property. I'll sell the tax credits, and I'll be long gone. And the government says, oh, well, geez, that was easy. Well, what if we sweeten the pot for you? And the developer says, well, what are you going to do? Well, instead of making this a 15-year project, what if we gave you more tax credits, but you'd have to agree to another 15 years compliance period, tax credit compliance period, TCCP. And the developer says, well, what do I care? I'm getting out of here, so I don't care how long the thing is a tax credit property. I'll take more credits. So the guy signs over another 15 years. That means when the developer goes to sell the property, the person buying it now has a 30-year requirement to comply with these low-income tax credits. And it's going to be their obligation to do so. Developer's long gone. He made his money. He sold his tax credits. He's gone. Now the new owner has got to comply with these requirements, low-income housing tax credit requirements. Now, the reason why I tell you that story, and I tell it to you in exactly that way, is because what you need to be aware of is that the brokers may try to bamboozle you, and trust me, it happens, may try to bamboozle you and say, hey, we got this low-income housing tax credit property that is coming out of the compliance period. And you think to yourself, oh, really? That's great. I love it when they come out of the compliance period, because then I can turn them into market rate properties. I'll explain to you what the typical calculation is for income requirements and how that impacts the rent. But essentially what it means is that right now all of these rents are essentially rent control properties. They're essentially rent control properties. And if they're coming out of the tax credit compliance period after 15 years, then you can go in there and over a 3-year period, you can build that market rents back, those rents back up to the market rents, and you've now got a fantastic property. Now, the issue is that when a developer tends to sell these properties, they don't sell them for a 15-year compliance period. They sign up for 30 years, and they go through the first 15, and then they go through the second 15. So it's very unlikely that you will be finding a property that only has one 15-year tax credit compliance period. Chances are very good that you're going to own this thing for 30 years before they take it out of the program. And that's exactly what happened to me. Is I got this actually with a client who might actually be on the phone call with us. This client brought me this deal, and it was oh my gosh, it was a beautiful property. It was fantastic. It was in Ohio, and I said, the broker sold it to us. It had 2 more years to go in the tax credit compliance period, and then it can be put into market rents. And these were amazing units and fantastic rents. And we thought, oh man, this is great. We should buy this thing, let it run for another couple of years, and then we'll start moving everything to market rents, and the value of the property will double in 5 years. The value of the property will double. But then I realized, I thought to myself, geez, I really don't know all that much about low-income housing tax credits. I should probably do my homework and find out more about it. So I called the Ohio Housing Authority that handles all the low-income housing tax credits for Ohio, and I spoke to an attorney in their office who happened to know every single property that was in the program. And I said, well, I'm interested in maybe buying this property. It's coming out of the period. And he goes, well, what's the name of the property? I said, well, I really don't want to disclose. Hey, just tell me the name of the property. I know them all. I'm not going to cut you out. I said, okay, it's ABC Apartments. And he goes, that's not coming out of the program. I said, well, no, the broker told me that it's got 2 more years to go. He goes, no, that's got 2 more years to go for the first 15. They signed up for a second 15 years ago. So, no, that one's staying in the program. I said, really? Well, this broker was telling me that this thing was coming out of the compliance period, and therefore I was interested. Now I'm not so interested anymore. But, I'll take my chances. So I made the broker an offer. And my offer was contingent upon the property coming out of the tax credit compliance period in 2 years. Now, according to what he told me, that's fine. There's no big need for that stipulation in the agreement, but we ended up submitting the offer, and the broker comes back and says, well, I got some bad news. They can't accept your offer. Well, why can't they accept my offer? Well, because the property is not coming out in 2 years. It's actually going for another 15. I said, yeah, I knew that. I just wanted to see if you were going to catch it. He goes, how'd you know that? I said, well, I called the office, and they told me everything about this property. He goes, oh, geez, well, I'm really sorry. Let's go work on another one. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, we'll work on another one. So that is how these low-income housing tax credits compliance work from a time period. Now, I had a document up here, and unfortunately my computer kind of crashed. It's a very, very strange day here in Boston. It is, I think we're working about 20 inches of snow right now, and I think my kids will be home from school again tomorrow. I don't think my kids have had a full week of school in the longest time. But my computer crashed, and I could not get the document. But here is what you need to know. The name of the document that controls all of this is called a LURA, L-U-R-A, a Land Use Restriction Agreement. That is the document that controls all of the tax credit, low-income housing tax credit compliance requirements. The LURA is an interest in land. It's a document that it's an interest that runs with the land. So that means that when they get the LURA and the LURA gets signed, it gets recorded down at the registry. When it gets recorded at the registry, the whole world can see that document and know exactly what's going on with this particular property. Because if you were going to buy this property and you did a title search, if that LURA doesn't pop up, you might be free and clear. But the government doesn't want that to happen. They want to make sure that their low-income housing units will flow and flow and flow regardless of who owns the property. So the LURA is always going to be a document that's an interest in land that's recorded down at the registry, and you can get your hands on it. So if the broker is telling you something about the property, about how the tax credits work, go online, pull the LURA, and read it for yourself. Somebody's going to have to read that document. All right, so the LURA is a document that complies. Now, let's take a look at this particular property, and let me explain to you how this one works in just a moment. Take a look at this property. Let me minimize this so you can all see it on one screen. All right, this is a Seneca Oaks. This comes in from Category 3 Development Corporation, San Francisco, California. So I find this on LoopNet, and just take a look. This is not a broker that you would tend to see if you're doing a Marcus and Millichap type search. These are the types of brokers or development companies that are kind of flying well below the radar screen, and they own property, and they will sell you their property, but you've got to find them, and you can find these places on LoopNet. Remember, I hate LoopNet for finding properties. I love LoopNet for finding brokers. Okay, so go ahead and check out categoryiii.com. And see if they've got any other properties. Now, this is a very, very interesting property. You're going to learn a little bit about tax credits just as we read through this right here. The owner of Seneca Oaks, formerly Eastwood Village, so right away you know if you want to go do a search on the internet or do an apartment reviews, that's the name you're going to use, seeks to sell the real estate to a qualified operator. Tells a little bit about the property. It says it was managed and operated as an affordable housing development under the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program in Ohio for 16 years until 2013. The previous owner was a regional, nonprofit, Ohio-based affordable housing developer / owner affiliated with a large regional Catholic hospital system in northern Ohio. Okay. The current owner acquired Seneca Oaks through a portfolio sale of other assets, so this property got packaged up with a bunch of other non-performing assets and sold off to probably Category 3. So if you're looking for some distressed assets or you're looking for property that you might be able to get at a steal, it sounds like Category 3 is the kind of company that deals in this type of business. Therefore, it is offering the discounted sale of this asset to a suitable regional purchaser or investment entity that has demonstrated capacity in acquiring and stabilizing multifamily operations. All right, now remember, this is Youngstown, Ohio. This is a tough area. A highly distressed nature of this asset came about as a result of the complex and burdensome income. Okay, listen to this. came about as a result of the complex and burdensome income and rent restrictions from its tax credit financing in 1999. Folks, that is the type of thing you've got to understand when you're looking at low-income housing tax credits. The requirements on the properties can be incredibly burdensome and can work against the property. So if the property is suffering an occupancy issue, even after you've cut the rent down to bare bones, you know, and you go to the government and you say, hey, we can't make this thing run. Can you help us out? The government will say, no, we can't help you out. We're just going to take this loan, package it up with a bunch of other bad loans, and sell it off to guys like Category 3, and you're out of business. So when you're looking at low-income housing tax credits, you've got to make sure that you're dealing with a good one. Don't buy. This property was built back in the early 70s originally. Then it became a tax credit property. You got to think about, like, geez, is this the right type of property to own? The flip side of that is there are a lot of tax credit properties that are absolutely beautiful, beautiful. So don't, because you see that particular line, don't automatically, you know, discount low-income housing tax credits as an alternative. Get to understand how these properties work. Check out this line. Due to the complex nature of these deals, the seller will not consider a sale of this asset to an individual or entity that is not well-funded and or knowledgeable in stabilizing distressed assets and workouts. Okay, well, get well-funded. Figure it out. Make this thing work. You're buying them at $10,000 per door. I mean, if you know that Youngstown area, this might be a pretty good deal. Now, let me show you another line in here that is very important that you need to understand. All right. Where is it? Okay, hold on. Look at this. Year build 1959 estimate. Oh, hold on. It's right down here, and it is right here. Property needs assumptions. Now, it's a poorly worded statement if that statement is what I think it is. If that is what I think it is, that means, and I think it is, the property is going to need you to assume the existing debt. And they want you to assume the existing debt, the existing terms of the existing note and mortgage. And the reason why they want you to assume it isn't because, you know, the note is such a great note, or there are any type of provisions in the note that defeasance penalties that the seller is going to have to assume. No, it's got nothing to do with that. What it has to do with is the fact that when you're dealing with a tax credit property like this on the LIHTC, if the property goes into foreclosure, the LIHTC becomes null and void. And this now no longer becomes a tax credit property. So the government does not want this property to be foreclosed on. They won't foreclose on it. They want the next owner to assume it so that the tax credit requirements remain in effect. Now, how do I know that? Where can you find that information? In the LIHTC. The LIHTC will clearly state that that if it goes into foreclosure, all bets are off. This property becomes a market rate property, and that's why the government says you got to assume the document. Okay, so and you might be thinking to yourself, well, the property failed. Why didn't they just foreclose on it? Because the government holds the note. They're in control of whether they foreclose or not. And if they know that if they foreclose, they're going to lose those people in the tax credits, they're not going to do it. They'll buy the note back at auction, but they won't foreclose, or they'll take the note back. Almost like a deed in lieu type of thing from the existing seller, but they won't foreclose on the property. All right. Now, let me show you a little bit more about how this thing works. Getting a big feed. Let me see what's. I don't know where my Hold on, I think it's. Well, I don't know what it is, but let me see if I can stop that buzz. I think I fixed it. I think I fixed the buzz. Sorry about that, everybody. Let me go scroll down here and give you a little bit more color. basically this property is in huge distress, which is surprising that they let it get this far. Okay, they're not going to tell you the financials. All right, we're not going to use this as an example. I'm going to pull out another property here for you, where you can see exactly. And look at this. Just check out these. Let me just grab this. Copy. All right, take a look at this particular website, Bradley Company. Who are they? These are brokers that I just found on the internet. You can go on, these guys are not your Marcus and Millichevs. These guys probably used to work for Marcus and Millichev, and now they're out on their own. And here they've got, some properties down here that you might want to check out. Indiana, it seems to be in Indiana, Kentucky, Danville, Kentucky. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of different properties that you probably, get in touch with these guys. They don't tell you who they are. But they tend to do more than just your typical, broker. So the next thing I want to show you is, let's go to another property package, Eagle Ridge. So this is another low-income housing tax property. This one happens to be in Flint, Michigan. What I'm looking to do here is to show you the thing that really makes low-income housing tax credits properties interesting, and you know what? I'm not going to find it with that. Kent Manor. Let's try Kent Manor. Here we go. All right, so check out this. This particular broker, they actually call themselves the LIHTC advisors, low-income housing tax credit advisors. And that's the thing about low-income housing tax credits. There are people that this is all they do. This is their specialty. This is the type of property that they go out and raise money for, because a lot of investors like to be in these types of deals, not because they have the tax credits. Those tax credits are long gone. But what they have is they have sometimes a more stable clientele. These people are, they're lower income people, but the government, has given you some very favorable financing in order to make these deals operate. So there are some people, and they all sit around and wait for these properties to come out of the program so that they can convert them to market rate properties. That's the key. That's where the big money is made. This one, let me just show you this. Oh boy, I hope, let's see. Yeah, as you can see right here, there is an existing regulatory agreement in place, that's LORA, and requiring all units to be rented to income qualifying residents earning no more than 45% of the area median income. Okay, those are the terms that you are going to need to understand when you're talking about LIHTC. AMI, what percentage of AMI? And so they will state for you, and it's the government tells you what AMI is, so you know what the requirement is of 45%, and that is the person's requirement for what they can rent, and whether they can rent your units from you. So right away you're given, not only is it hard to rent units in the first place, but now you just added another burden to the renting by the fact that only certain people can get in there and that can rent these types of units. And as you can see, there are all the qualifying residents are provided by the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, which would be like the equivalent of a Section 8. The property's initial compliance period ended on 2012. You see, that's the first 15-year period, and per the extended use agreement, has an additional low-income housing period for an additional 22 years. So this property is going to be probably a LIHTC property for the whole time that you own it. Now, let me scroll on down here. See how beautiful Kennewick is. Looks like a bear with me. Geez, it looks like a kind of like a motel. Probably was at one point. All right. Let me just get down to the bottom. So now here, as you can see, okay, so here they're allowing you to get new financing, which is good. that's fine. You can get new financing, but you can't. If the property, but the LORA agreement is what is going to rule over the financing. So this, you can get new financing that can never be foreclosed on because that Washington Housing Authority is not going to foreclose on this property or allow it to be foreclosed on. Now, taking a look at some of the other issues that you have when you're dealing with LIHTC property. The property currently receives a property tax exemption by including a nonprofit partner in the current ownership structure. If 75% or more of the units are leased to residents earning 50% or less of the AMI, the property will receive a full exemption. This analysis assumes a buyer will include a nonprofit to continue benefiting from the full property tax exemption. That's a pretty big assumption. Is that going to be what your purchasing team is going to have in a nonprofit? Well, if it isn't, then you've got to go back, and when you go to evaluate the deal, you've got to make sure you're looking at current taxes, not the tax exempt numbers. Let's see, what else do we have down here? Okay, now check this out. As you can see here, the unit type and the set aside. This 45%, that's the set aside. Look at all of these units have 45%. They're all being used for at a 45% AMI. Now keep in mind that not all LIHTC properties will have all units under that restriction. Some will have half of the units under that restriction. And then what you can do is you can rent off the other units to Section 8. And what you'll see is there's a huge disparity between that 45% AMA set-aside property and any other property that is at a Section 8 level. So, you know, you think to yourself, gee, why don't I just rent them all to Section 8? Well, that's not how the tax credit program works. And here it is. So this is as of 2014, the 4-person area median income is almost 67,000. You're going to take 45% of that number, and that becomes the number for what you can rent to. So if a family of 4 shows up at your door, they've got to qualify with a $30,000 income, and if they do, they can get into your units, and they're going to pay for a where were we? Let me see, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 45%, 13. They're going to pay $649. $695 is the most you'll be able to charge them. Right now, the market is $649, or actually the rental assist number is 46. So these people are paying $46. And the Washington Housing Authority is paying the difference of $649. That may be the case. That's the other thing. You need to understand exactly how that money comes into your coffers. Is it coming to your coffers like Section 8, or do you need to go out and pick up that money from the residents every month? So there you have. That is all of these. Whenever you're looking at a LIHTC property, looking at a property package for a LIHTC property, you always need to understand exactly how these numbers work. The property that I was looking at with one of the students on this program, and folks, you know, if you're working on any deals, if you're looking at any properties, and you need some help, just shoot it on over to me, and I'll make sure that it gets taken care of. That I help you come up with a plan on what to do with that particular property. The issue that the student was having was that you couldn't quite figure out exactly how, why it was supposed to be 100% LIHTC property, but about half of the units were being rented to Section 8. And for the life of us, we could not figure out how that was occurring based upon what the LORA guidelines were. So that's the type of thing you need to speak to the broker before you can even make an offer on the property and get an understanding of exactly what's going on. So keep that in mind whenever you're looking at these types of properties. And I'll tell you, folks, I've dealt with now, after years of doing this type of work, I've dealt with many LIHTC properties. They don't scare me anymore. They're just a twist on an old style, and you just have to understand how it works. If you find any of these types of properties and you don't know what you're doing, just shoot me an email. Let's get on the horn. Let's work through it together, okay? So essentially, that is going to be it for today's offer writing workshop. Let me just see if there's anything more I need to show you. Fair market rents, as you can see, well, studio 1-bed, 2-bed, $754. Last year, remember, $695, but we're getting about $654. So that is, you know, the rents are below market, but not that far below market. which is good. Okay, let's see. There's some of the other properties. Okay, just your typical standard broker package. So that is it. Read Allura. Go online. Go to a registry of deeds online and download a Allura. You'll be able to see them. Very, very, very easy to see. Let me shoot back on over here. Yeah, so I ended up going through all of these LIHTC properties as I was working it through. Let me see. Matt Huff is with Poe and Kronk. Poe and Kronk. I mean, do you know who these guys are? If you're looking to find brokers in the multifamily deal, a multifamily area, you know, don't just deal with the Marcus and Millichaps of the world. Start looking around at these other places like, you know, Matt Huff of Poe and Kronk, wherever that is. Don't know where you are, Matt. But as you can see, there are only about 21 properties. Most of them now, as you can see, are under premium search. I won't even spend a dime for that because chances are very good Matt Huff might be one of the guys who's down there trying to sell one of those properties. Well, if that's the case, he'll let me know what it is out there anyway. Let me just check my questions. Yeah, okay. Let's check out some questions. Having a problem hearing you, Rick. I hope you can hear me, Rick. I just got this, you know, a little while ago. And Kevin is asking, what's a good asking price? Kevin, are you referring to the which one? That Seneca property that we looked at, the ugly one, or Kent Manor? I'm gonna wait. Yeah, Kent, the second one. So Kent Manor. So Kevin's asking, what's a good asking price? Well, Kevin, I don't know. And I don't mean to be, you know, flip or anything. That's not why I say that. I have not worked up the numbers of this property. Let's take a look and see. They're asking for $2.5 million, and of course I can't find my calculator. Here we go. I think my wife swiped my calculator. My wife's office is right upstairs from mine, and sometimes things go missing. All right, so what do we? 51 units, 250 million divided by 51 units. So we're looking at about $50,000 per door. All right, the first thing I want to do is just to make sure that, you know, what's a comparable property in that area trading for? How much per door? Now, remember, I'm not saying that we're using the per unit analysis to make our offer. That is not what we do. I just want to have a better understanding. I don't know anything about Kennewick, Washington. So the first thing I would want to do is find out all that I can about Kennewick. What's going on in that particular marketplace? You need to know everything that's going on in that area because you're going to need to sit down with some cash investors and say, hey, you know, what, you know, will you put $50,000 IRA money with my deal? And they're going to say, well, tell me about Kennewick. And you better have an answer for them. All right, so next thing what I would do is remember as we build our cash flow analysis, we have to build the top line. There it is right there, folks, LIHTCadvisors.com. Check those boys out. And Boise, Idaho. And they might have a bunch of properties all over the country. That's their specialty. What you're going to need to do is build a financial model here in the cash flow analyzer such that it shows the top line as being the gross potential rent that you can charge in this property. The reason, Kevin, why I can't answer your question is because I don't know what the gross potential rent would be on this property. I still need to speak to that broker to get a better understanding of this AMI. Because if I can look at it and I know that these are the rents that people are paying, and then I've got that UA, which is essentially the copay for their rent, I need to add those two numbers together. But remember that the reason why I couldn't do this with this student the other day is because we had such a question regarding those Section 8 units that were being rented out at such a larger rate, even though they told us that the whole property was under a tax credit restriction. So how am I able to rent these units out for Section 8 and keep these units for low-income housing if the document says I got to save all of it for low-income housing? Well, I better get an answer to that question before I can even calculate what the gross potential income is on the property. And then once I figure out that top line number, then I can start building my model all the way down by taking off those categories out of the income that go towards reducing income, like concessions, managers units, vacancy, both economic and physical, loss to lease. All of those numbers go towards getting me down to my gross collected rent. And then from there I can come off using the income numbers and my rules of thumb for income, and then come up with the NOI. And then because I've become such an expert on low-income housing tax credit properties in this part of Washington, I know what the cap rate should be for this property. So once I know the NOI and I know the cap rate, boom, that's how I come up with my asking price. And these guys are asking $2.5 million, remember? But what do I always say? What do I say about the asking price of a multifamily property? I'm going to, if you know the answer, type it into the question box. Some of my students know exactly. Let me see. What do I say about the asking price on a multifamily? It's a lie, Ted. I love you, Ted. Ted was right. The biggest lie in multifamily is the asking price. So if I do all of that analysis that I just described to you, and I come up with a number of 1.8 million, and they're asking 2.5, what's my offer going to be? 1.8. That's the number. I can support a 1.8. I can go back to the broker and say, hey, here's my NOI. Here's my cap rate. Here's the price. 1.8. You guys are asking 2.5. What gives? Why do you think your property is worth so much more? Are you on oil? No, you're not. Then where's the extra value coming from? It's there. They have to be able to justify that 2.5. Because remember, your biggest investor is your bank. And the bank is not going to allow you to get into a bad deal. The bank is going to say, hey, we just ran the numbers, and this property is only worth 1.8. So we will not allow you to buy this property for 2.5. So you've got to go back to the seller and say, hey, justify your 2.5, because even my bank can't get to that number. So that's how we figure out what the number is, and that's how we make the offers. We don't care what they ask for. It's what works for us. Okay, Kevin then goes on to ask, he's curious as to what the NOI is with the LIHTC in place compared to the asking. Okay, right, exactly. That's kind of what I think I kind of went through. The LIHTC is going to tell you what the restrictions are on the property. The restrictions are going to run with the land. So they're always going to be an interest in land that is recorded with the deed. And it's going to clearly state what you can charge for income. That's essentially all the LIHTC is going to talk about, is the limitations on the income, their income requirements on the property. It's not going to talk about the expenses. It's not going to talk about the vacancy. It's not going to talk about the loss to lease. It's not going to talk about any of those things. It's only going to talk about that top line number. And that is where you're going to start. Then you're going to work your way down the list and come up with a bottom line NOI. So the LIHTC starts you off at the top. The NOI is what you end up getting at the bottom, and then it's the NOI that is ultimately the value, the variable in the equation for the purchase price. Okay. Oh, yes. Hey, listen, Rick just asked the question, can I post a LIHTC on the website? That's a great point. Let me do that. I apologize. The reason why you're not seeing it right now is because my computer kind of crashed and I hadn't saved it online. I will go back online. I will, when we redo this, when I post this recording up on the group coaching call, I always have sections down there for documents that I used on this particular call. I will attach a LIHTC to that, to the recording of the group coaching call. Great point, Rick. I appreciate that. And then I got Kevin asking me the question, generally, aren't Section 8s low income? Yes, they are. They are. But remember, there's a whole bunch of different types of low income programs out there. All right, not all of them are Section 8s the way you might understand them. Section 8 sometimes are called, have a voucher, and then the voucher walks around the marketplace and finds a home. So that's a Section 8 voucher. But then you can have what are called project-based Section 8s, which means that in the whole entire property, every single unit is a Section 8 unit, which means that the only people that can live there are people that have qualified for Section 8. And then they can go in and just move right on in. But when they leave, they don't take anything with them. That project remains a Section 8 project. So that's another type of Section 8. Then you've got like, rental assist or what I call RD properties. Rural development has what I call rental assist properties, which means that the USDA, instead of HUD, is now giving out vouchers for people to get into low-income housing. And then now you've got low-income housing tax credit properties. Well, the project-based property and the Section 8 voucher, beneficiary property, they didn't get any tax credits. So they're required to go out there and make it based upon what the market is. But then a tax credit property got a benefit. They got to be able to sell these incredibly lucrative tax credits. If a guy's got a big, huge tax problem, he can go on the secondary market and he can find tax credits to buy. So if he owes $1 million, he goes out and buys $1 million worth of tax credits for $500,000. The developer gets the $500,000 cash. This guy gets $1 million tax credit, and he saves himself a ton of dough. That's how it works. It's another government scam. Oh, I'm gonna shut up right now before my libertarian ways start to take over. Okay, so I think I've answered all the questions. I will be putting this up. It'll probably be up based upon what's going on here with the weather. This call will probably be up before the end of the night, before the end of the day. I'll have it all recorded, and then you can see all these documents, and I will have a Laura up there. Great idea, Rick. And if anybody is working on any deals that they need any help with, that's what we're here for. We're here to help you gain confidence in submitting offers, gain confidence in what you need to do in order to get that first deal done. So definitely use us, folks. That's what we're here for. So, hey, everybody, I hope this was an informative call. We'll probably be getting back to our regularly scheduled programming where we actually go through an entire property package and I make an offer on that property package during these workshops. And if you're working on anyone or you want to see how I evaluate one of the properties you might be looking at, send it on over and ask me to do it on the next workshop call. I'd be more than happy to do it for you. So, hey, everybody, have a great, safe week. Hopefully, I'm looking out my window. It is an absolute whitewash out there, and I'm just longing for my Charleston days, where I spent with my buddy Rick Brace, and yeah, one of these days. All right, everybody, have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.